Hi, Julie.
Hi, Kirsty. Welcome to this very special bonus episode of We Interrupt This broadcast.
Yes, we're talking about the streaming quotas.
This is such an important issue. We've got a very special guest coming in, and we were just talking about how this is a once in a generation opportunity for us. So, we're going to be digging down into that. We're going to talk to you about what the quotas are, why they matter, and what you can do to make this happen.
What is a quota and what does it actually mean?
The ask is that of the money that the streamers make doing business in our country using our infrastructure through the NBN, that they reinvest 20% of that back in working with local creators, telling our local stories.
The quotas have become an election issue, and this is the point in time where all of us can stand together as an industry, not just for ourselves and our own jobs, but for the cultural impact that will have for decades to come. So, we're very excited today to introduce our guest, Rebecca Barry of Media Stockade. Welcome, Rebecca.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself to kick off?
Yeah, sure. I'm co-founder of Media Stockade. We're a small and mighty production company focusing mainly on documentaries, but we also dabble in drama as well. We work in the premium space, lots of features series for Nat Geo, the occasional streamer, ABC, SBS.
So, just to put a bit of historical context around it, this has been a conversation 10 years in the making. This is not new. This is something we've known for a long time. And historically, quotas have been part of how we've protected our industry, right? We've had quotas on our domestic broadcasters. And that's why we've had great shows like All Saints and Stingers and even Neighbours.
That's right. Quotas have existed, for a long time for free to air.
When the streamers came in, those initial quotas were linked to the broadcast license. Because they're offshore and they didn't need a broadcast license, they have never had that requirement to produce Australian shows.
They're coming into our pool. They are bringing in billions of dollars into their companies. They don't pay a lot of tax. They're also utilizing something that we all own as taxpayers. We own a $50 billion infrastructure called the NBN. And there's basically no framework for them to operate in the same way. So it's actually not fair. They're not playing by the same rules that everyone else has to play by.
So, what we're really looking for is security that if streamers come into Australia, they have subscribers pay Australian dollars for the ability to watch their content. What we're asking is the security that a percentage of that will be put back into creating more Australian content from Australian production companies, and not just when they feel like it, but they'll be mandated to do that.
Australia is not a lone wolf in this. This has happened in many other countries, and this is a practice that they are well familiar with countries asking. When you do business here, you spend part of the money that you make in investing in that country having its own stories on screen.
That's right. France has brought it in, Denmark have brought it in very successfully. There's nothing really kind of out there or crazy about this idea. It's basically getting our government to get the streamers to toe the line.
And Rebecca, what's really at stake here? Like, why does this matter at the most basic level?
I think there are two things that make this really important. Number one is the cultural argument. We're a small country. We don't have a huge population. Our stories are so important to unraveling who we are, discovering who we are. It's kind of fundamental to the DNA of what it is to be Australian is storytelling. So there's a really important cultural argument here. As Julie mentioned in the introduction, like all of those wonderful shows, those Australian shows with Australian accents, the dramas, the documentaries, the kids TV, all of that amazing television that we grew up on, that existed because we had quotas put in place for the free to air broadcasters. And look, the reason why, that was brought in is because, if you're acquiring content as a broadcaster, it's a lot cheaper. So content from overseas, it's like a tenth or a 20th or even less sometimes of the cost of actually making it. So of course, what are they going to do? Like, they've got hours to fill in there on their channel. So they're going to buy cheap content from overseas.
Yeah, I think one of the things we do need to accept in this change in how we're viewing and streaming is that the companies that are now bringing entertainment to our doorstep, they're tech companies. What's important to them is the bottom line. And so they're always going to take the cheaper option. Like that's part of their business responsibility. But that is not okay when it comes to the idea of storytelling and reflection.
And I think one of the arguments from streamers is that they will invest in Australian content, and they are doing so. But at the moment, it's up to them. It's on a whim. They can change their mind anytime they want to. So the quotas are really about ensuring that that commitment to invest in Australian content continues.
The other reason this is important is for the viability, the sustainability of our industry. Our industry is suffering at the moment, and I'm sure everyone listening to this, we're all struggling to make a living and to sustain our businesses. SPA just released a survey this week that really highlighted and amplified that the industry was suffering because of the delays of not bringing in these streamer quotas.
So bringing in streamer quotas will essentially mean there's a mandate for more Australian production, which means we'll see more shows, we'll see more jobs, we'll see more Australian stories. That's the heart of it at the end of the day.
That's right.
And it's not just American shows coming in using our crews. It's actually our stories that are things that matter to us in our specific geography and multicultural communities that we live in.
If we just want to be a country that provides production services to American productions when the dollar's low, when it works for them, that's actually where we could be heading.
I mean, there is a really practical element there. Like American companies like coming here when our dollar is low. But if that changes, which it could, and we're in a volatile market, that will be withdrawn. Like they're not coming here because they're our friends. They're coming here because it's a great opportunity and because there's some incredible soft money. So that leaves us very exposed as an industry as well if we haven't strongly developed our own IP, our own storytellers, and generating a sustainable market on that level.
The revenue model is a very clear, concise way of getting 20% of their revenue back into Australian production.
And I think that market factor is really important. Like, one of the criticisms of the Australian industry is that we rely quite heavily on government funding for our productions. This funding will not be government funding. It is a mandate from government that the market, who is benefiting from our stories, our production, our audiences, needs to continue to enable us to tell those stories. So the money is coming from people who are watching the shows. It's not coming from government to support the industry.
It just means more money in the pool.
Rebecca, why is this a once in a generation opportunity?
Well, as we've seen, it's very difficult to implement legislation, and it's very difficult to get the politicians' attention to create change. And we've got their attention, and they just need to drag it over the line. We are in a new world order with the streamers. Like they are dominating. They're dominating, YouTube's dominating, and we need to protect the new emerging filmmakers coming up through the ranks and making sure that they have similar opportunities to what we had when we were growing up in the industry. So it's really just about focusing in on what's important. And the streamers are going to, they're battling it out. They're fighting really, really hard. They're using all sorts of tactics to try and get the politicians' attention.
So what the streamers are trying to argue is that we'll be in breach of the free trade agreement by implementing this quota. Is that what you're saying?
That's right. I mean, it's kind of a red herring in a way. It's a bit of a distraction because when the free trade agreement was set up originally, our government at the time siloed out culture as an untouchable element of the free trade agreement. So they're kind of, using that as a bit of a false argument to get what they want. Although you could argue in the last couple of weeks, what does a free trade agreement actually mean anymore?
One of the questions that came through from our listeners was around the argument from the streamers that even if we did implement quotas, we don't have the industry or we don't have the crews to sustain that level of production. What would you say to that?
I actually think that's a bit of a myth. SPA, by the way, have got a really great fact and mythbuster document up on the website. So we should put that up for the listeners as well.
Well, I mean, it's chicken and egg, really, isn't it, Kirsty? Because, even if that was true, if we have a sustainable pipeline of shows, people are more likely to not only come into the industry, but stay in the industry. As we all know, there is a sustainability issue at the moment, internationally and also in Australia. And ensuring that people have work that they can go to consistently is going to keep more people and draw more people into our industry.
Yeah, it's going to create those training pathways that make high levels of production even more possible.
And I think it's important. Let's keep a big perspective on this. I don't think that we should just pin all of our hopes on the quotas. Firstly, because it's not a done deal yet, and secondly, we want sustainable businesses beyond that, and that there are lots of opportunities. But quotas is certainly a core part of that.
I kind of relate it back to my days playing basketball where you need the umpires and you need the regulations and the rules in place to make the game fair and to make it a fair playing field. But then on top of that, you need to play in a way where the umpires don't matter. You need to be winning from the perspective of your own game and what you're putting into it. And I think that's the case here. We need the quotas, we need fair legislation, we need to make that playing field fair. But then we all need to look at innovative business models and how we're going to push our own productions to raise the level of quality and output in the industry as well. So we need both.
This is a complex model, right? This is part of why it's taken so long, is because there is an attempt to get it right so that there aren't loopholes in place that can be utilized down the track. Like, we get one go at getting this right.
We do. And the time is now. So we've got an election coming up, and Albanese and Minister Burke have been vocal in the last couple of weeks about showing their support.
I love that quote from Albanese. We strongly support local content in streaming services so Australian stories can stay on Australian screens. That was a very bold statement from him, and I know it was appreciated across the industry.
I would hope for the best in that regard. They did take this to the last election and they weren't able to deliver. So take it with a grain of salt. But they have said that they do support the regulation. It's got a lot of support internally. So SPA are doing a lot of inside Parliament House. They're doing all the negotiations and advocacy. Most pollies seem to get that this is important and they understand the importance of Australian stories. So there is a lot of support out there for this subject.
I think what they may not understand is the breadth of impact this will have across the industry. Like, we are an industry of business owners and business operators, and that extends from everyone from the production companies who are generating and making the content all the way down to the freelance crew members who are sole traders working in service businesses that provide for the industry. So the amount of businesses that are going to be impacted by this advocacy is huge. And I think that's a really important thing to remember as well. This is an election issue. This is a cost of living issue for all of the individuals that are out there in the industry who make a living through this work.
Let's talk about action. What can people do to take action at this point?
Yeah, so look, there's a number of different things that you can do. And I totally get that everyone's busy. We've got Easter coming up and we've got, school holidays. I totally understand. It's difficult to get involved in a campaign. Bare minimum, just use the template, go to the SPA website, download the election toolkit, take the template email and send it to your MP. Find out what your local electorate is, who's your MP, and just send them that email. If that's the baseline you can do, just do that.
You can think, oh, what's an email going to matter? But I've heard a calculation once that really stuck with me. And that is, for every email that gets into an MP's box, they assume there is another 100 people behind that email. So if every one of us in the industry just does that, copy, paste, send to your local MP, that can have a real sense that there is a powerful, broad industry to whom this really matters.
You're totally right there. And then the next step up from that is go onto the Documentary Australia form, which isn't just for documentary, by the way, it's for everybody. We've got a lot of drama people involved as well and crew. And you fill out this form and then you'll go onto our mailing list and we'll put you into a group for your electorate and we'll put you in contact with your group leader. We've got about 80 electorates covered. There's a team leader for each of those groups. And basically you work together and you try and organise a meeting. The group leader will organise the meeting with the MP and then you turn up en masse and you have a discussion with your MP. And look, the thing to remember is that the MPs know all about this. They all know about it. They know all the issues, like they are actually educated. It's really about en masse, grassroots, going in and just saying, this is important. This is an election issue. We need to address this now because the industry is really suffering.
I think a lot of people are hesitant to get involved or go to a meeting, or what if I say the wrong thing, or I don't fully understand the issues myself. All you have to do is talk from your heart about your own personal experiences working in film and TV, why it matters to you to have Australian stories on screen, and why it matters to you to have more jobs generated for our local industry. So if you care about the future of our industry, if you care about Australian stories being around for decades to come, now is the time to act and to let other crew know. Send people this podcast, give them an understanding of the issues, and let's all band together and make this happen. We want to get this across the line. It is so important.
Okay, so first thing, go to the SPA website, and we'll put all this in the show notes. Download the election toolkit. You can either copy and paste the email there, find your local member, send it, you're done. Or you can go to Documentary Australia. You can sign up to get involved in people in your local area. Great way to meet other creators who are in your local area as well, crew. And you can actually go and have a meeting. And the things that we're talking about are that we are a small business organisation, we have a cost of living issue, and that this is a significant election issue for us.
And don't just concentrate on your current MP. Go and talk to the other candidates as well. Several marginal seats that have a very, very good chance of, changing as it always happens in an election. So do make sure that you go and speak to all of the different candidates, not just the current sitting MP.
And I would encourage people, even if you're not sure whether you want to get involved, go and fill out that form. You will be connected to the people in your local electorate who are advocating, organising pub nights with politicians. And once you're connected to them, you will know what the activity is that is going on in your local area, and you can make a decision then as to whether you want to go further and get involved. Rebecca, if you were standing in front of your local MP and candidates right now ahead of the federal election, what would you want to say to them directly?
Pull your finger out. Let's do this. Come on, fire up. Do your job.
And what about to the producers, cast and crew who are listening to the podcast right now?
Get involved. I've committed half an hour to an hour a week on advocacy because it's important. If you're going to turn up and complain about the situation, my question to you is, what are you doing about it? Have you sent your letter? Have you made your phone call? It's part of our jobs. I know we all love to think it's all just creative, but it's not. We've got to stand together as a united front, crew, producers, big business, small business, and get this over the line. It just makes so much sense. It's not going to cost the taxpayers anything, and it's going to deliver some extraordinary stories and really cement our cultural future.
And we need everyone. Like, the only way we can get this done is together. Your voice, no matter how little you think it is, your voice matters. Just think, you sending that email puts another 100 people of pressure on your local politicians so that we can get this done and shore up a really strong future for our industry. We only have a few weeks until the election. The time is now. We Interrupt This broadcast is recorded on the unceded lands of the Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation and the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains, and we acknowledge them as the traditional custodians and first storytellers of these regions. Always was, always will be.
This episode was brought to you by Screen Vixens, Expanding Media and Crew HQ. We Interrupt This broadcast is hosted by Julie Eckersley and Kirsty Stark and produced and edited by Leonie Marsh.